This video is brought to you by Brazil Resources, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol BRI, and on the OTCQX International Market under BRIZF. Brazil Resources just announced an agreement to acquire 100% of the Cachoeira project from Luna Gold Corp. The deal terms imply BRI is paying $18 an ounce for gold in an emerging gold district in northern Brazil, located near BRI's other 3 gold projects. The company is 35% institutionally owned, with 16% of outstanding shares held by the KCR fund, controlled by Doug Casey, Rick Rule, and Marin Katusa. The geological team has earlier discovered more than 10 million ounces of gold directly in Brazil, and is led by successful mining CEO Amir Adnani. To learn more about Brazil Resources, visit BrazilResources.com or call 855-630-1001. Thank you for joining us at FutureMoneyTrends.com. I'm here with economist Mike Krieger. He's a good friend of our show, and he runs a website, Liberty Blitzkrieg. It's one of the best sources to go to daily. And he's not going to overwhelm you with information or 100 posts. It's somewhere at the end of the day, if you haven't had a chance to see what's going on in the news or what's going on in the economy, maybe you've been busy, you go to libertyblitzkrieg.com, you get an intelligent article and Mike's 2 cents on the story that he's covering. Mike, thanks so much for being with us today.
Dan, great to be back to talk to you.
Mike, you know, a lot of people have read your work on Zero Hedge, and now they're following you on your blog as well. And they're concerned about the economy. Looking at 2012, the elections, people think that maybe there's going to be a collapse. It's imminent. The volume's low for stocks. Things look ugly, but it is an election year. How does the rest of 2012 play out for the U.S. stock market and the U.S. economy?
Okay, well, I mean, this is the one theme in the economy and the financial markets that I've been, thinking about and writing about cryptically in some ways for most of the year. And you can't separate obviously politics from economy. They're one and the same, more so than ever now in the United States, given how fragile things are. Look, the Obama administration obviously wants to maintain power. Obama obviously wants to be there for 4 more years, and they are in control, right? I mean, as being the president of the United States, they have levers that they can pull in all aspects of society, and it'd be foolish to not think that they would do everything possible in their power, no matter what it means to the long-term future of the United States, to make things look okay, or as okay as possible, into the election, or keep things together. So that's why in my head I've continued as you see the news flow get worse, as you see mounting evidence of recession in the United States, as you see more corporate earnings disappointing, which you're seeing again this earnings season. You're not seeing stocks collapse yet, or financial markets really go through any turmoil. I believe that's partly due to an effort behind the scenes to keep things steady into the election. So my feeling is that the closer we get to the election, the more people really, and I'm talking even for like professional money managers too, you don't want to wait for the last minute. I mean, as we get closer and things are kind of still stable, I would significantly reduce what you perceive as risk in your financial portfolios. And I would do it ahead of the herd, because when the herd does it, I believe it's going to be all at once, and you're not going to be able to react.
Do you believe, does it matter whether Obama or Romney win as far as what's going to happen to the country? And I don't want to say economically, but focusing on our civil liberties. Is it going to matter if Romney or Obama wins?
No, I mean, not at all in my mind. They both frighten me completely. I believe they're both on the big issues. They're completely together as far as, as you know, in my website, a lot of the things I write about are, is essentially the dismantling of the Constitution. And I see no evidence that Mitt Romney is in favor of the Bill of Rights, just like Obama isn't. So I'd expect the corporatocracy, oligarchy, political establishment to continue to crack down on dissent, to violate the Fourth Amendment, increasingly try to attack the First and Second Amendments, free speech and the right to bear arms. Of course, the Fourth Amendment is illegal search and seizure, which we're seeing everywhere with, I don't know if you saw, 1.3 million requests from the government in the last year to cell phone companies for information. Mm-hmm. That just came out the other day through a congressional hearing. So, no, I think the wheels are in motion. Both these guys on the issues that are, I think, important to our freedom and liberty are the same guy.
Is there anyone that would be more advantaged as far as the liberty movement? Will the liberty movement, for example, if a Mitt Romney, who in words will say he's for the free market, mm-hmm. if a Mitt Romney wins and the economy collapses, is that going to be devastating to the free market advocates and the basically a frame job?
Yeah.
Will be more complete with Mitt Romney. as far as that, how will the liberty movement, I guess let me put it into a question, how will the liberty movement move forward with a Mitt Romney or Obama win? Will that matter?
I don't think it matters. I mean, what's interesting, in some ways, Romney winning could even be better for the liberty movement, in the sense that what Obama has done is really create an aggressive liberty movement within the progressive or liberal side of the equation. And these are guys that I've really sort of been a fan of on my blog site. And one would be Glenn Greenwald, who clearly leans towards what we would call the left side of the right-left paradigm, and he is aggressively, almost daily, attacking Obama and the hypocrites on the fake left, let's say, that are in power for basically doing all the things they said they were against, and not standing up for liberty and human justice and the Constitution. And so that's been good, in the sense that Obama has now created that resistance within his own perceived support base. So like Romney could just further do that within the other side of the political spectrum, right? Like libertarianism and Ron Paul and all that became very popular under George W. Bush, as people realized this guy isn't for the Constitution. This guy is just a thug, essentially. And so that brought a lot of people from that side of the spectrum into the Constitution and liberty. Now Obama's done that with a lot of this intellectual left. So Romney will just further, I think, disillusion people that think, this is going to be better than Obama, and he'll just galvanize more. So no, I think the liberty movement is in a secular upswing, and that's not going to stop until the politicians stop taking away our freedoms, which will not happen anytime soon.
Now, going to lifestyle, a lot of people have said, you know what, the economy is going to collapse. I believe it. They're following it every day on the blogs, and they're prepping. So they're delaying and deferring a lot of life decisions. Some of them might not even be, having children because they're worried about an economic collapse. They're buying a lot of food and gold and silver, or they're delaying a house purchase. They're renting. The life of a prepper. How long can people continue doing this without there not being a collapse?
Well, here's what I think, and this is how I try to live my life. So in other words, you don't want to take things too far in the sense that you're not enjoying life. And I think that's where some people may go wrong. So, is it good to be prepared and aware and cognizant of the fact that the world is not going to look like it looks today in 5 to 10 years, which I'm almost completely certain that it won't? No, that's obviously a good thing. It's something that I encourage. But you want to do it without a panic, fear-driven, emotional framework, let's say. So what you want to do is say, you know what? That old way of living isn't one that I like anyway, right? Or I don't like all these, cheap trinkets from China as much. I'm going to buy like something local instead that maybe costs more, and instead of buying a couple of things, I'll buy one thing. I don't know how to farm. I'm learning how to farm now. Maybe you get some chickens, a cow. I don't have these things, but what I'm saying is these things can make your life rewarding. You don't want to go into it thinking I'm doing this because I'm terrified. You want to, I think, go into it saying, okay, this is the reality that I believe we're going to face. Let me just embrace and enjoy a different way of living, which at the same time will protect you. That's very important, I think.
Okay, for everyone else that's not prepping, the 99.9%, the masses, one of my concerns is that this fear that's supposed to happen on the markets, that these people are just not smart enough to ever be is society just too conditioned to trust the government, to trust the media? Are they too conditioned, and are they too dumbed down for there to ever be a collapse, because they'll just keep putting their faith in the system?
Yeah, I mean, I think what is clear at this point, and to some degree it's disappointing, in that I know for a fact that I convinced a lot of people to be aware of what's going on, and I've woken up a lot of people, and I believe I've gotten people protected for what's coming. There is a certain portion of the population that, for whatever reason, and of course a lot of it has to do with really bad education and government propaganda, and not to mention the fact that they have to work so hard, they don't have time to really think or read or anything else or explore intellectually what's going on. They're just not going to wake up in time. And so the question really becomes for us that are awake, how are these people going to react afterwards? Are we going to be able to help them? Are they going to turn on the people that are protected or have protected themselves ahead of it? It's a very scary thing. But no, I don't think keeping the sheeple asleep is gonna obviously avert collapse at all. But they will not be prepared. And so we need to understand that there's a large percentage of this population that will be completely caught off guard and very vulnerable when the collapse happens.
Now, how about lifestyle? Like, a lot of people define their success and they're focused on materialism and money, and, they only define success as being financially successful. You are a very successful man financially, but that's not exactly how you define success.
Yeah, so we were talking about this earlier, and as you know my story, I had what I would call a pretty cushy job on Wall Street. I liked it. I really enjoyed most of the people I worked with. It was easy for me, and I was doing really well financially, and all the rewards were there, and there was no reason to think that if I played the game, that wouldn't continue indefinitely. But I walked away from that, and I walked away from that to a much less secure situation now, obviously. But I've never been more fulfilled, and I've never been happier, and I've never felt a bigger sense of mission, and that I'm doing what I was put on this planet to do, or at least I'm on that path. And so my suggestion to everyone, and not everyone can do what I did, and I understand that, and I'm not trying to be a example of what you should or shouldn't do, but I would say to everybody, think about what you're passionate about. Think about how you can make a positive change, like that Gandhi quote, which I love, which is be the change you want to see in the world. I mean, that's what I think people need to try to do as much as possible. Again, not everyone can do that given certain circumstances, but if you can, even a little bit, do that in your own life, and the world will change, and you will feel much better about yourself too.
Going beyond that, as far as the friends you make, I mean, do you still try to warn your family and friends about this, people that you're close to you, or have they either flipped, or have you just given up? I mean, do you still tell people, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been very encouraged by this though, because again, like what I've noticed is pretty much everyone in my life now, or my friends, that a lot of who weren't as interested or awake a couple of years ago, which was very frustrating, they're pretty much all awake. And I'm very encouraged by that. And that just has to do with me, obviously, my personality. I don't stop, I don't quit, I hammer things, I email, I post. And what I found is if you have someone that's looking at the material and you present them with the facts on the ground, as far as the surveillance state, manipulation of financial markets. Obviously, we just saw with LIBOR just coming out. I mean, it's as if the universe is almost doing the work for us now, right? We sounded the alarms, and now it's like all the garbage is sort of floating up to the surface almost every day. Whether it's money laundering at the Vatican or LIBOR rigging. I mean, PFG best now. I mean, it's just all sort of happening. I expect the snowball to continue to grow and grow and grow, and people will be unable to remain asleep for much longer.
Have you rejected the system entirely, or do you still purchase stocks?
No, I'm in. I mean, I've made this clear from the beginning. I personally do trade in the financial market still, and I do manage the family office like I've done ever since Bernstein. I don't believe in the financial markets, and therefore I don't really write about stocks or futures as much as I used to, just because I think the best thing for your average person to do that's listening to me is to not play that game, because it is a rigged casino. That being said, I am a professional on Wall Street. I know the risks. I understand it's fraud. Therefore, I can live with whatever is going to happen with regards to that. If something bad was to happen, like an MF Global or something, I understand that. But I wouldn't suggest other people being very involved in the financial markets, because I think they're essentially fraud.
So the all markets are fraud.
Well, I mean, if LIBOR, which is used to price 350, this is according to CFTC themselves, 350 trillion in swaps and derivatives. I mean, multiples of the size of the global economy. was admittedly being manipulated. Everything is being manipulated because stocks are priced, as you know, off of interest rate. Interest rates are a key component to the valuation of equities. I mean, you hear this garbage all the time on CNBS. People saying, oh, well, stocks have never been cheaper relative to the treasury yield or right, some yield. I mean, well, if the yields themselves are being manipulated, everything is, it's a hologram. It's a total hologram, in my opinion. Every single asset.
Now, turning to gold, when you were on Wall Street, were you ever discouraged about talking about gold or buying gold or advising people buy gold?
Yeah, I mean it's not a secret that Wall Street doesn't like gold, and that was my experience for the most part as well, and I think that's still the case out there. And yeah, I mean it wasn't something people wanted to me to focus on for sure.
Did you ever get like a phone call or a memo or is it just kind of one of those things where there's no guideline to it, but you just kind of know not to talk about it?
Most of the signals were subtle, about not really going there. And again, it's somewhat understandable because the business of Wall Street is paper and paper assets, and that's what they do. In simpler times or less fraudulent times, that's all good and fine, and that serves a very important purpose in a capitalist economy. Problem is, now most of the securities are fraudulent that are being thrown out there. So, I mean, that's why I was making the message on gold, but that's also why Wall Street doesn't like it. It's because they don't want people to not trust what they're selling.
Bernanke's role in this. Just like a lot of people like to say, certain person's pulling the strings. Is Bernanke really the guy in charge over there at the Fed? Or are there people who are influencing him, perhaps private citizens, that are really calling the shots, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to... Bernanke is tough because sometimes I vacillate back and forth between whether this guy is some evil genius or like he's just almost a useful idiot in a way. I tend to think the latter because the people that are really sort of telling the Fed what to do or prodding the Fed into what to do are the large financial banks, the too big to fails. And then if there are powers behind those companies potentially as well. But the point is, they're the ones that have the Fed's ear, right? When they say, we need you to cut rates or we need you to add liquidity or we need help, the Fed sees its job as to bail out and protect these players. Now, I also believe that these players wanted Ben Bernanke in there because, as we know, in his I think it was 2002, the famous helicopter speech or paper. He already had written exactly what he would do in a collapse. So of course the banksters knew that.
Yeah,
and they wanted this guy in there, right? Because it's much easier to get someone, all right, to do what you want them to do on their own accord than pressure them into doing it. So I genuinely think that Bernanke's perfect for these guys because they knew that when push came to shove, he was a big printer and he was a big bailer out.
Do you think Ben Bernanke genuinely believes that he can keep the economy moving and have some type of renewed boom?
Yeah, I don't think he believes it anymore. So that's why we're in the really dangerous phase we're in now. So in other words, during the crisis and right after it, I believe Bernanke, based on all his academic theories, was salivating, thinking this is my chance to put everything to the test to prove that central bankers can change essentially nature and prevent cycles. And that's why he was very clear about QE1 and QE2 and doing all these things and buying the securities because he thought deep down it would work. Now it's clear that it didn't. Everyone knows that now. Even people at the Fed are saying more QE wouldn't necessarily help. So no, I think that's why we're in such a dangerous period, is that I do believe that Bernanke now, and he sort of hinted at it at times, saying, he didn't realize, it was much harder than he thought in reality versus an academic paper. He knows now that he can't save this thing. And that's what makes it very dangerous, because that means the manipulations and the behind the scenes things that they need to do to make things look good are going to be ratcheted up multiple times because he doesn't really believe in what he's doing anymore.
So what's the end game? Do they allow a chaotic collapse to happen, or they try to reset the system, reevaluate everyone's debt around the world, coordinate it with the central banks, go to a gold-backed currency? Can we have do you think they'll try to do a smooth transition, or do they want it to get chaotic? Because as you know, during times of crisis, you can just sign something and totally override the Constitution.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I mean, as much as I would love to see, a global agreement, let's say on money, or like using precious metals, or whatever, some sort of different, some rational move on behalf of central banks, even though it wouldn't, there's no easy way out, something where they're actually trying to deal with the issue. My gut, unfortunately, makes me feel like if I know these guys, and by these guys I mean the most powerful financial people on planet Earth, and their mentality is one of, we'd rather burn the whole Earth to the ground than lose. And I believe that's how they think. And so that makes me very concerned about the concept of some sort of false flag or purposeful major war done as soon as they know collapse is coming.
Well,
blame it on that.
We've recently seen a lot of troops. I actually know some people in San Diego who just got called up. They were actually supposed to be on, off for I think like 10 months because his wife was having a baby, and just 2 nights ago they said, "Hey, you got to go." And his wife's due in less than a month. That's terrible, and he's heading to the Middle East. Yeah. Do you think that we're headed to war right now?
I mean, again, like, if I know these people, and I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right about these guys, the minute they know that they've lost control of the financial markets, and it's going to go, and they'll know that moment, I think, ahead of time, because they've been propping it up so much, they'll try to start some sort of major war so that all of the things happening can be blamed on that. And I've said this before, I was thinking about it last night. Think about, right? Let's say that the gold market is being held down at the moment by like just leasing and selling other people's gold or central bank gold like in mass to just keep it under control. Let's also assume that the supplies are dwindling. If they know they've got another 500 tons to sell and then it's close to being gone, what better thing to do than to start a major conflagration in the Middle East with Iran or whoever? And then, because they know the gold price is about to explode because they can't manage it anymore. And then they can say gold is soaring because of war in the Middle East. Not because of the fact that all the gold was sold. Not because of the fact that, we've printed too much money and there's too much debt and there's a collapse. So that is my biggest fear, is that when they know economic collapse is inevitable and coming, that a major diversion is going to be used to cover it up.
It reminds me of like every time right now, recently, when the news is bad and the economy for the U.S., Obama and everybody likes to roll out and start talking about Europe. How there's this huge headwind from
like Europe. Without Europe, we would be fine.
Exactly, like the recovery would be perfect if
they don't. We have to remember like human nature, and academics that have spent their entire lives believing their own garbage, essentially, which is what I believe Ben Bernanke is. That is his life. When they figure out how wrong they were, 9 out of 10 people will not, admit, I was wrong. Let's do the right thing. They'll fight and clutch and hold on to it and try to save face. And the problem is the people that need to save face have their hands on the nuclear button.
Yeah. Well, what's the post collapse look like? Because what I'm thinking is a frame job of a supposedly free market capitalism that we don't have in this country, but everybody says, "Oh, look, we tried to have capitalism, we tried to have markets, and it didn't work. Look what it got us." What does the post-collapse look like? Are we going into a society where we're going to have price controls and government manages everything we do from healthcare to what we purchase at the grocery store? Or are we going to, like as some people in the liberty movement are optimistic, we're going into this enlightened area where we're going to have sovereign individuals and more freedoms?
I mean, my best guess, and is that there's going to be a period of, which is sort of what we're in now, actually, where things are really really bad, and people are getting poorer, but they don't really know what's going on, and the government's putting in more and more authoritarian rules and laws and surveillance and dismantling the Constitution. But and that'll probably accelerate as the economy gets even worse. But my hope, and of course, this is why I'm doing interviews like this. This is why I started my blog. This is why I've dedicated my entire life, essentially, to the liberty movement at this point, is that I do believe that we can take that and flip it on them. So in other words, the more that they're becoming authoritarian, the more that they're trying to take control, the more resistance is building. The more people are waking up, the more smart people are dedicating more of their time and efforts to fighting back.
Which is the minority. So what about the 43% that are kind of on the government dole?
Well, they're never... Look, at the end of the day...
It's going to get bigger, though.
Yeah. No, for sure, and that's what they're trying to do. Like, as I've written about, like the food stamp, they're encouraging more people to get on food stamps. So people are...
Yeah, where food stamps go to die at Walmart. I love that article,
and I'm actually I'm planning on, after this, posting another really good one on food stamps that I just saw. So it's crazy what they're doing. But no, for sure. That's dangerous. But at the end of the day, it's like no army can stop an idea whose time has come. Again, when I look at the intellectual resistance movements, whether it's a left-leaning guy or a right-leaning guy, libertarian or a progressive, but like where they're anti-establishment is they actually can come together on the really important issues, and they're not actually meeting and collaborating, but individually, because I follow both sides, we're saying the same things. So ultimately, I believe that an alliance will form where the resistance, instead of being separated, will come together in uniting to save essentially freedom. Mm-hmm. And I do think that will win out. And as I've mentioned before, the reason I'm confident about that is because of things like the internet, and believe it or not, even Twitter, which I recently started using. It's just been amazing to me to see how many brilliant, ambitious, global minds are coming together and collaborating every single day on this thing to share ideas and to try to win and make this world a better place. And I do think that ultimately that's what we're going to get. But it's not going to be an easy ride, and it hasn't been an easy ride.
Mike Krieger from LibertyBlitzkrieg.com. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dan.
You have a good day, sir.